at these words, you will see that they are interrelated. And when I, through the advice of Maria Artsema, was asked if I would moderate this, I really had to look at the words and study them a little bit, because they are the result of one another. So, in order to look at your mission and your purpose and your scope, I think it's very important that you know where you are from. So it's really good to go into, the times that we were just starting. And yesterday, Tim, in one of his introductions, mentioned something that Colonel Olcott had said during the inaugurational speech that he gave on November 17, 1875. And I've read that speech, and among many other things, he also said that he would prefer not to be called a founder of the Theosophical Society, but rather a former. Former meaning giving shape, giving form to the TS. And actually, as you are all sitting here, you are formers of the Theosophical Society. It is not only the people that you most of the time see at the stage. It is also the people that are right over there, what you do within your own group. So I think that since we are in some sort of a transitional period, we really need to, look into the things that move us and what we can possibly do to move the vehicle forward. And again, in order to do so, we first have to, take a good look at ourselves. What is the mission? What is the purpose? And what is the scope of the TS? Since Tim became president, international president of the Theosophical Society, we have entered, let's say, a transitional period. We are trying out new things. We're trying to innovate. And you know that when you try to do something new, that's a telephone. If you try to do something new, sometimes you need to take a risk, and sometimes things don't go as they, were supposed to go. But in spite of that, you need to go on. So today we're going to talk about the mission, the purpose, and the scope. And for your convenience and for the people here on the stage, I have placed all the questions on the PowerPoint presentation so that you can read the question, and also the members here are able to verify precisely what the question was. So let me introduce to you here on my left the new General Secretary of the Indian section, Pradeep Gohil. Next to him, a wonderful lady with whom I have the pleasure to work together with for Italian translations, together with Enrico Stagni. Enrico, where are you? Oh, there he is. Patrizia Calvi, the National Secretary of the Italian section. Then, of course, our International President, Tim Boyd. And when I say the Theosophical Encyclopedia, when I say the Mahatma letters to AP Synod and the chronological sequence, when I say the Golden Link colleges, education, and when I say all those countless tours he did all over the world talking about self-transformation, a genuine innovator, Vic Hao Chin, and then from further than down under, from beautiful New Zealand, the General Secretary, John Vorstermans. You may wave. And please keep your hands up. Please do it like this, because today it is Patrizia Calvi's birthday. I think after this forum, I need to I need to, well, we talk it out. We talk it over, right? Okay, I was talking about things that might go wrong in this whole process of innovation. And I wrote in one of my articles this as a starter. Setting out to new frontiers, instigating new initiatives, breaking down worn-out and old walls, heading into a new direction isn't always safe. Risks need to be taken, and at times obstacles or letdowns look as if they are too big to overcome. Still, we would need to take on the challenges and accept the perils that come our way. It isn't always easy, but we have to go on, and we have to look at ourselves. The first question I will direct to Vincent. What is it that makes the DS different from other spiritual movements who also are out there doing their specific work?
Often I would say that the Theosophical Society has one of the most comprehensive teachings about nature, cosmos, and the individual. It is something that we don't find almost anywhere else. And it has led to many other sub-teachings outside of the Theosophical Society. The second thing is our unique freedom of thought. We really practice it, and it is something which also defines the Theosophical Society as a venue for borderless search without fear that we disagree, that we may be right or wrong. And those are two of the things that I think are unique.
Thank you so much. Patrizia, would you like to fill us in on this particular question?
I would add the lack of dogmas, of course. And
the lack of dogmas.
Yes, it makes us very different from any other association where you find a list of things you have to do and things you have not to do. And of course, this fragrance of freedom, that freedom that makes you believe that every soul has its own path to tread, and that you have to respect them. Respect each and all of us.
Thank you. Pradeep?
Well, I think we do one thing that probably others don't. We investigate unexplained laws of nature rationally. Others just follow what the guru says, and that makes a big difference.
John?
I would just add that our search is continuing. It never ends. We have certainly been given and understand many things, but we can't make a conclusion until we verify these things ourselves. And I think that's an important part of the Theosophical Society, recognizing that we're explorers on the way, learning and trying to understand what this Theosophy is.
And Tim?
I would just say, much like all of the others have said, that one of the things that I think does distinguish the Theosophical Society is its relationship to Theosophy, which is to say, the context of the ageless wisdom teachings is something that, at least from my awareness, is unequaled. There are many things that express aspects of this teaching, and sometimes very well, but the broad context of the inner nature of man, nature, of the cosmos, of the capacities that each and every one of us have within us, not only in the conventional way of looking at powers that are latent within, but the deeper sorts of powers that are really emphasized in the theosophical teaching, which are those powers of compassion, powers of insight, powers to really become perfected in such things as love. These are things that others perhaps share in, but such a focused and such a complete context is what differentiates the Theosophical Society.
Okay. I think these are beautiful, comprehensive answers, which leads us to question number 2. And I must share with you, when I started making the questions, I came, Vic, I think up until 15 or 16. We've brought the number down to 11. So we're going to try to cover all 11 of them. The second one, and I would like John to look at this one as a first responder. The TS is a nucleus of women and men who sincerely want to consider the problems of the lower world in the light of the higher. It can provide a forum for those who are searching for truth. Now, how do we make known that such a forum exists? And how do we appeal to the youngsters?
Well, I can answer the first part. How do we make it known that we exist? And the way that I'm used to doing it in New Zealand is through advertising. And we advertise generally on social media.
So you advertise on social media? Can you give an example where you do that exactly?
We would do that primarily at the moment on Facebook. Yeah. And generally, we might advertise it to 40,000 people, and the response rate might be 10. But the response that we've had when they come to explore Theosophy with us through our study programs has been consistently good, that they stayed with us. But the other side of it is it's letting people know what we're doing, and it's not always that we want a response. It's just letting people know that we exist. And it might sound like a bit of a cliche, but when the time for them is right, they may choose to come and sit down and explore things with us. The other ways we obviously use is YouTube and avenues like that to share some of the content of the things that we do.
Let me ask you, you advertise on Facebook. These are commercial advertisements. You buy space there?
Yes, we promote advertising on Facebook. So with Facebook, we would first put an advertisement for a program that we're doing on our website, and then we'd promote that to Facebook, and then we'd pay Facebook to distribute it to a certain demographic, and they would see it on Facebook, and then they would like your page, so then they see further advertising of what you do, and then they have the choice to click on the ad and come to our web page, and if they wish to, come to our program.
Thank you, John. Pradeep, I know we had a pre-meeting, Pradeep and I, and I know that this subject is particularly one for him, so go right ahead.
Well, I'll answer the second part. One way to appeal to the youngsters is to get them to do something that they like. Most of them love service. And I feel that if you introduce them to some service projects of the kind that we have in TOS, that would be the best introduction for them to Theosophy, rather than to introduce them with the secret doctrine on the first day, and you might not see them again. The second way I think that is very important is to make it known to the youth that such a forum exists right from their school days. Have some theosophical subjects taught in schools, and for that, it will be ideal if every lodge, if they don't have their own school, they can at least contact some other schools and they can try to introduce a subject there which will be taken up voluntarily. Now, even if that doesn't work, they can say, well, we would like to conduct some quiz and we'll give some material on which the quiz will be given, and then depending on how they do, we will give them certificates. The youth love that, and they'll read maybe the basics of Theosophy or the basic books on which, or maybe about any Besant. This is one other way in which I've found, and this I have experienced, that they'll later on ask, well, where is the Theosophical Lodge in your town? So this is probably the other way. Now, still further, I think the youth generally love to travel. This is one of the proposals that I made at Narden also. Maybe we can have something like International Theosophical Exchange Program for Youth, in which students from different countries will go to other countries, stay with a Theosophical family for either 2 months during their vacation or for a full year, attend school, and the background that they get from the Theosophical family of the Theosophical orientation, that will at least teach them a lot, and they'll come to know about Theosophy. Now, most of them I've seen are very anxious for this kind of a thing, but right now it doesn't exist. Yes, it is expensive, but I think hosting would not be a problem. I'm sure we can easily find hosts, and for travel we can at least start in a small way. We are not talking about 1,000 students being exchanged. We are talking about 10 to 20 students in the first year, and then grow up to say 100, 200. But these will be our ambassadors in their schools and colleges, and they will talk about all that they did. I was an exchange student myself. It was not a Theosophical exchange, but it was that exchange year when I studied in the US for 1 year in the 12th grade that changed my life. And I think this is another thing that would be very, very important. And the last thing I feel is to be an example to the youth. If we ourselves can be that example, that is the best way for them to know about what Theosophy is and what it can do.
He's a good example. Huh?
No, I don't know.
But just one thing that struck my mind. You really make it a point that you actually want to put them to do something.
Yes, yes.
What can they do?
One of the things we all know, they have a lot of energy. And where can we use that energy? We have to use it productively. If we can use it for service projects, there is nothing like it, because it will help the community. It will help the community know that there is something like Theosophy that is promoting this, the Theosophical Order of Service that is promoting this, and this is from where they are benefiting. When people benefit from something, then they get attracted. And that is the way they can be attracted. At least they can be exposed.
Right, thank you. And how does that go about in Italy?
I totally agree with what Brother Pradeep has said. And something of this case, something of this kind has been done with the international meetings of young theosophists that Italy tried to sustain, sending 2 of its members in Brasilia for twice in these last years. But I will add, also to say, a refreshment of the language of our teachings. I'm not saying refreshment of the teachings, of the language we use, because it is quite old-styled. And I would like very much to have it renewed.
A sort of renewal of the texts that we read in the books, in the language of our day and age.
Yeah, yeah.
Because that would appeal better,
yes,
but leave the principle there and the heart in it.
Absolutely. Not the teachings, not
right.
refreshing the teachings.
Vic, how do you work that out in the Philippines?
we try to do it in as many modes that we can. I think today one of the most effective is what John was saying about the social media. I think the reach is far greater than most approaches. So we are doing that. The second is that we use public magazines. So we have two public magazines. One's the Theosophical Digest, and the other is Peace Ideas, which we bring out to the public in general. And a lot of people come to know about Theosophy and the Theosophical Society through these magazines. The third area is engagement in various forms. So through seminars like the Self-Transformation Seminar, through training programs, we conduct it to the public, to companies, for example, private companies, to government, to even the military, and then interreligious dialogues, to schools, universities. So we have modules for each of these, and I think this is quite helpful because they get to know about Theosophy, Theosophical Society in a more substantive and a deeper way than just a superficial knowledge about the subject.
One thing I would like to ask you is, that really struck me, you do interreligious dialogues.
Yes.
Can you elaborate on it a little bit further? Who meets with whom?
In the Philippines, in the southern part of the Philippines, we have conflicts among Christians, then what are called the Lumads, then the Muslims, and it's important to bring them together to be able to understand each other because they have they put divisions among themselves culturally, and it is part of our task to try to bridge the gap in friendship, in cultural understanding, and other forms. Yeah.
Thank you. We go to number 3. Tim, this one is for you. You may start off. Okay. This is the question. Are Theosophists to go out into the world and spread the teaching? Or, in a subtler context, are we to focus on ourselves first and make regeneration of the individual a fact?
I think sometimes it seems like a logical way of considering something to divide it in this way between activity in the world and activity within our own world. My thought or experience on it is that really the two you can't really divide the two. I mean, the fact is that every one of us finds ourselves someplace positioned within this world. No matter how much we feel as if we want to withdraw from it, we always are in touch with others, necessarily. And so the quality of that contact is what I think the exposure to Theosophy can affect. Mm-hmm. To the degree that we approach it with some sincerity, it necessarily has some level of transformative effect within us. And then if you just sit in a room, you are having an effect that in some way spreads this theosophical influence. I think, though, beyond that, part of what it is that we do is we have this responsibility to share what it is that we know. And I think one of the difficulties for us as Theosophists is what we count as knowledge is very often perhaps not, maybe it's a little superficial, which is to say that to have read something is to know it in an intellectual way. I can pass that on. That might have a certain value. But the deeper value, I think, comes from actually dwelling with these teachings in such a way that it becomes transformed into an experience. And then at that point, you have something you can exemplify in the world. At that point, you have the possibility to really connect with others and to spread a genuine theosophy rather than a superficial or intellectual Theosophy. The responsibility, I think, goes both ways, inward, outward, and they can't be disconnected.
They cannot be disconnected. They are all interconnected.
They're interconnected, yeah. It depends on where you place your focus at a given moment.
John, you wrote in your excellent magazine many articles referring to regeneration. How would you approach this question?
Regeneration is part of living theosophy, as I understand it. The challenge in relation to this question is a little different. Now, if, for example, if I'm going to spend my life trying to regenerate before I do anything else, I would find that quite a selfish approach. So I would agree with what Tim says, that the two go hand in hand. So it's part of the regenerative or the transformative process is turning from a selfish nature into a selfless nature, where you go out and serve and help the others. And as we begin our theosophical journey, much as Dr. Dipati talked about in her excellent talk, we go in a sort of arc. We start the process through knowledge, through reading, through learning. But eventually we have to almost leave that behind and try to experience what these texts are talking about. And that's what theosophy really is. It's if you really read, for example, the Mahatma letters, it's about a process that one has to follow. And part of that process is helping in the world. And that process in itself is transformative if you're going through that in a genuine way. I'll stop here, otherwise I'll turn into it.
Thank you. Pradeep, the next one. You may take the lead in that one. Okay. If the TS as an organization wants to remain effective, its mission and purpose need to be critically analyzed, investigated, and, if needed, adjusted to our day and age. That sounds good, huh? But how do you do that?
Yeah, I think let me start by first defining the difficult words there, mission and purpose. I know you're all familiar with theosophy. I don't need to define that. And as such, we all know it is not very easily definable either. But what will we say about mission? And before we take up a mission, we have to have a vision. Vision is like a dream. You try to dream of something that I would like to have that. That's your vision. It was once explained very nicely. If God were to appear in front of you and ask you, what would you want? That's your vision. Then what is mission? Well, mission is exactly how will you get about achieving your vision. So I think that is what we have to concentrate here, on the words vision. We don't even look at, because now we are entirely focused on mission and the purpose that we are here. So I think we have to look at it both ways. The mission will tell us how we are going to go about something, and the purpose will say, well, why are we doing that? There are 4 basic ingredients to a mission statement. The first is, what does the organization have to do? What? The second is, who will the organization service? What? Who? And the third is, how will the organization do it? That's how. And the fourth, mention the benefit the organization will give. Now, let me give you an example. This will make it very interesting, and I think I understood it very well just from this example. Toyota Motors has an excellent mission statement. What it says is to attract and attain. These are the first four words in their mission statement. They are saying, what does the organization do? Toyota attracts and attains that attraction of people. Who? The customers. It is the customer's attention that they are attracting. How? Their next words say, with high-valued products and services. So both products and services. And finally, mention the benefit. What is the benefit from it? Toyota says that gives the most satisfying ownership experience in America. So, you know, it's so nice. We had set up some rules. We have been able to fit the mission statement of Toyota exactly in those 4 rules. And I don't know if at this stage, if you want me to try to set into this definition what could be one of the possibilities of a Theosophical Society mission statement, we can do it this way. What does the organization have to do? To influence. And you know, that is what we already talked about, that we are to make Theosophy known. We are to influence. So the next line, who? Who are we to influence? Well, the words will say, the people of the world. And then, how will the organization do it? And we'll say, by the process of spiritual self-transformation, respecting the unity of all life, sharing and learning together with compassion and spirit of service. And finally, mention the benefit the organization provides to progress in the discovery of truth. So here we've got a mission, one of the possible missions that we can have.
It sounds a bit like a sort of corporate approach. Vic, what do you think?
Thank you. I'll probably just add on the how, out of the things that Pradeep mentioned. I think in this century, one of the most critical things or most important things that we should focus on as a Theosophical society is on applied Theosophy. In the past 140 years, we have strengthened the idea level, in other words, the teachings, the nomenclature, the scope. But I think we have been quite weak in demonstrating its applicability in the problems of the individual as well as in society. We should do more in that area, because a lot of people, that's the reason why sometimes we hear that the Theosophical Society is an intellectual organization. In some ways, it is a valid comment, but in other ways, it is not fully understanding what the TS can do, but we have to demonstrate it. For example, we consider, let's say, meditation important. And yet, we don't have a public program on meditation to teach people how to meditate, young people how to meditate. I think we should do so. We speak, in the past 100 or so years, I've read a lot of things from Blavatsky, Olcott, Annie Besant, Arundel about education. And yet I think we are very weak in that area. I think we should strengthen that and demonstrate that Theosophy has the means to transform young people. Yeah.
Let me interrupt you just for one tick. I mean, are you actually suggesting that we should found Theosophical schools, for example?
Yeah, that's what Blavatsky in fact said. Yeah. That if we had the money, meaning the TS has the money, she would found schools, and she spelled out what she would do, and that all these things that we'd like to idealize in a person's growth, can be achieved by a truly Theosophical school.
And that would be a little bit in line with what you are doing in the Philippines, you know, the colleges that you have opened. I mean, is that a door that was opened, and is that some sort of a direction we all could go, for example?
Yes, that's our attempt. It is, of course, imperfect, and it is continually evolving, but I think we should go in that direction. And with its imperfect approach, still we see a difference, an important difference. It's not simply about knowledge, but how a person grows up.
Thank you. Patrice, any room to found Theosophical schools in Italy, you think?
Oh, I believe that a lot can be done. And for example, the book that Vicente wrote about self-transformation could be a good tool in order to start from somewhere, because we really don't know how to put it. And of course, we need teachers, we need... we have a good work to do. But Blavatsky, before she died, she urged us to keep the link intact and provide a link between the great truths and all those who seek them with varying degrees of consciousness. So she gave us a mission. We have it. She left it just before dying. We have just to go on.
Thank you. We go on to number 5. Let's see. Matthias wants to influence humankind through the process of self-transformation, pointing to the one life. And by making Theosophy a living force in one's life, all can positively contribute to the welfare on our planet. And this is more like a sort of general question. This one is for you, Tim. How can the TS, by means of its membership, concretize that influence?
Well, I think a lot of what we have been talking about thus far talk about the ways in which we concretize that, the ways in which we make it real. Is that yours? Obviously, it's a very concretized approach when you have physical buildings and schools that attract people. I think with our international center here, you have a physical space, but of course, having been used for a certain purpose over 142 years, 120 some odd years, you have more than just a physical space, but you have something that is attractive and has an influence on anyone who steps inside of this place. One of the things we've tried to do with Adyar, we have more people who come through here just to walk, for instance. They're not members of the Theosophical Society, but they're people who are friends of the Theosophical Society and who very much appreciate the influence of the place. I think that in many ways there are ways that we can develop the use of this place so that it is in fact something that has an impact beyond just, you know, a beautiful sense of the natural world. But there are temples that are scattered around this place that have been used but have fallen into less use. Those are things that would invite people to genuine practice in the midst of a setting that says that all of these religions are viable. There's no place else in the world where you can go and find representations of all of the world's religions there together. This is a concrete thing. But again, it has to be activated. So that's just one way. Obviously, where we have our lodges, where we have our centers, these are very concrete things. These are things that people are attracted to. I think one of the things that Taimni, Leadbeater, others spoke about, when we have our meetings, it's something that the individuals that attend the meeting go there and you feel a certain benefit from the community of people who are thinking along these lines. But the real purpose of this work is the magnetism, is the radiation that comes from this attempt at harmony, at cooperation. So although it's not something that is visible necessarily, that's one way that we are also influencing the world.
Thank you, Tim. John.
I think our three objects, they're a bit of a challenge to really moving forward with some of this process. The three objects, from my perspective, were the mission of the Theosophical Society from 140 years ago, before they had missions and visions and all that sort of thing. And I don't disagree with the objects at all. It just, I feel that it needs a little bit of clarity. Like the first object, the former nucleus of the universal kinship, fraternity, brotherhood, whatever really points to our mission, what we're trying to do. We're trying to create an organization where the people realize this this unity. And how do you do that? That's the challenge. You know, and the second object really is about learning to develop discernment, discrimination, through the comparative study. The third object is about more the self-exploratory, willing to look at oneself and willing to open up and see our conditionings, our blockages, and so forth, and process them in some ways. That's what they mean to me, but it's not clear when you read it. So when I look back at, you know, at what the theme of this particular session is about, it's about looking at what's the purpose and the scope of the TS. We can't do that without being willing to sit down and have a dialogue around such things as our objects. Certainly we can create a mission and leave our objects alone, but I think it needs to incorporate the whole lot. So to conclude, I'm not saying that we need to drastically change our objects, but I think we need to look at them and put them in a language of today. For example, I come from New Zealand, an English-speaking country, and now the term brotherhood is sexist. Now, to us, we understand what brotherhood means, but to someone new in New Zealand that sees this as our object, they're not going to go near our organisation because they see this as a sexist organisation. This is just an example of some of the issues that, you know, one country faces, perhaps.
So you're saying that you would favor a sort of new version of the objects, or an updated version, or a revised one?
I would definitely favor having a dialogue about it. Not a discussion, but a genuine dialogue about our objects and seeing where that takes us. I have no preference for where it should go, and maybe it won't change, but I think a dialogue is a healthy thing in an organisation that's had the same objects now for, how long is it, 130 years?
So like a dialogue is a path to innovation and a modernization, perhaps?
Perhaps, or clarification.
Yeah. I have to look at my watch. We have to reach number 11, so we go over to number 6. And this one is also for you, John, and then we go down the line here. Regeneration is one of the main pillars in Theosophical thinking. And it is often described as a movement from self-centeredness to altruism. And in view of this, what is it that the vehicle can do to help to set this process in motion? And perhaps I should have added, this is not there, keeping in mind that we are a nucleus. We will see that in the next questions, the nucleus. How do we practically set out on our path to an altruistic heart? John.
Well, I'm reminded of a quote from HPB who said that our work now is on a psychological level. This is where the regeneration has to occur. So unless we as an organisation are willing to promote mechanisms and tools that can look at psychological transformation as the first step, it is very difficult to move forward. And we have some tools, for example, Vic's process of self-transformation, but have we got other tools that we can help that individuals to unlock themselves, to find out who they are, as our third object alludes to?
Okay. Is this better? I just was told that it was difficult to hear me. You can hear me also in the back? Oh, that's good. That's good. Patrice, what is your take on this? That's it.
I think that if I have to wait to spread Theosophy till I am regenerated, it could take ages. So I think that service can be a way to go through this. And another thing that can help is to ask ourselves why we did apply. Do we remember what we felt when we did apply to join Theosophy? Mm-hmm. I feel that this is a very important question to answer before starting this work. It could be helpful because what moved us can help others to go through it.
Okay, thank you, Pradeep.
I think this is a good question because it's saying we talk a lot, but how do we practically set out on our path to an altruistic heart? And I think one of the ways we can set out onto this path is by example. Now, the example will go both ways. We can learn about some examples and then have that as a vehicle to take us towards that. We saw the clipping this morning, how that dog saved the other animal. It's this kind of things that will ultimately actually set you out on the path of an altruistic heart. For that, books, and books written in native languages with examples. If we have a lot of these, if we can have some of these good books, identify them, and then translate that into our native languages, then once people read that, I think they can set themselves in motion towards an altruistic heart.
Thank you. We move on to number 7. What is this? Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. Take a seat. You're welcome. Okay, we go on with number 7.
Can I say something about the regeneration?
Yeah.
My understanding of the word is a bit different. The Mahatma letters use the word to refer to our need for understanding, regenerating brotherhood. And my understanding is this, regeneration, for example, if a lizard, its tail is cut off, it will grow again. And my understanding is that altruism, brotherhood, good character, is something that is regenerated time and again, not only in one's life, but generation after generation. Yeah. And I think what the Mahatmas are referring to is the need for us to develop a mechanism where such altruism, such character, such compassion will be regenerated in each generation by something that we do regularly, time and again, in our work as a Theosophical Society. This is something quite difficult, but it is something which has been used in training of various things in commerce, in society, and it can be done for character building and spirituality.
Thank you so much for this addition. We have skipped one question. Tim, the next one I would like you to start with. In 1924, the GC, the General Council, adopted the Freedom of Thought Resolution, which is considered to be sacred and most determining. But what does it precisely mean, and what is the value of that freedom? And although it sounds like a paradox, shouldn't it be subject to certain boundaries, Tim?
The freedom of thought that is envisioned for the Theosophical Society is the idea that there is no specific teaching, there is no specific teacher that can necessarily be imposed. Their view cannot be imposed on any member, or it cannot be spoken of as the point of view of the society itself. That being said, there are core foundational teachings that are the basis of the Theosophical Society. So, on the one hand, you have a body of core teachings. You have a body of teachings that have brought this society into being. But on the other hand, you have the freedom to not just accept, but to explore and to adopt to whatever the extent that is your particular capacity, or to reject. When I was first coming into the Theosophical Society, I had something of a mentor, and he would talk about different things that were very new ideas to me. As a 19-year-old, unexposed to any of this, not coming from a theosophical family, to hear about some of the ideas that are just normal to seasoned theosophists was quite a leap for me. But his particular approach was, listen to it. If you find it does you some good, great. If not, throw it away. Or better than throw it away, just put it in a drawer somewhere and come back and look at it another time. And I think as, at the level of a 19-year-old, that's a good way to express it. Freedom of thought. You are not required to have these beliefs. The only thing that is, I think, it's not a negotiable item, is the idea that the search for truth necessarily takes us in the direction of an ever-expanding exploration and hopefully experience of oneness. So how the many ways that oneness is experienced and expressed, those are the lines we go along. It seems as if one of the things that is coloring this particular convention is the great shadow of Annie Besant has fallen upon us during this time. And one of the things that was just so profound about her, all of these movements that she started were all focused on this one basic principle of unity. So unity in terms of education of women. It's not just one group of humanity that is educated. So that's the one thing. We can explore it, but I think that's the basis that this freedom is rooted in.
Thank you, Tim. And due to lack of time, we have to move on to the number 9 one. Concerning the teachings, could it be that because of the freedom of thought principle, the TS Adyar might have lost some of its focus on the core teachings, simply because there is so much material to choose from, to go through, and to study? Vic, what would you say?
I think a major problem here is that we have not really harmonized the teachings, particularly on basic theosophy and theosophy for the public. We have two sets of literature, the original one, Blavatsky, Mahatma Letters, and the later one, and they're not very compatible in many ways. I think we should sort this out, because otherwise we will be fragmented forever, having two camps of theosophy out there in the world. I think this is not going to work very well. And some of these incongruences are basic. For example, what is the astral body? Read the Mahatma Letters and HPB, it means the etheric double. But the astral body in later literature refers to Kamarupa. Which one is which? These things, I believe, should be worked out. In a non-dogmatic way, perhaps there should be some kind of a group of people who might wish to come together and then look into what would be a way of trying to harmonize so that on basic theosophy, we are more or less, we have an understanding of what it is. On the nuances, the details, the advanced theosophy, never mind. Because here you have 1,000 details which people may not agree about, but that's all right. But on basic theosophy, we should. And this is, I think, blocking us in moving forward because there is internal dissension because of these things. We should work on these.
Thank you. John.
Well, I don't know if there's much more I can add to that. I don't think the freedom of thought binds us at all. I think it's a great strength of the Theosophical Society. It also is a weakness because it's misunderstood by many.
Could you be more specific what you mean by that?
By it being misunderstood?
Yes.
A lot of the members of the Theosophical Society tend to think that freedom of thought is more to do with that they can do anything they like on a theosophical platform, that there's no restriction to what they could do. They don't realize it applies in the context of how Tim explained it, that it's a right for each individual to accept or reject whatever is presented on our platform. So this has led to a diluting of the Theosophical Society because of the confusion or the lack of clarity that some members have around the meaning of the freedom of thought declaration. Yep.
Okay, thanks so much. And I think we are able to reach even number 11, last two questions. And I'll start with Pradeep. I will read out the question to you. Ever since its founding, the Adyar has been an organization with a modest membership. In the 1920s, it peaked at around 40,000. And now, Adyar membership stands at more than 25,000. Now, if we consider that we are to be a nucleus of universal brotherhood, Pradeep, what does the TS need to aim at quantity or quality or both, or?
Again, I'm happy you asked me this question because this question is very often discussed in corporate circles. Do we go for more production or do we go for quality production? And the answer over there is always, well, both. But here, I think in Theosophy, we have to be very clear. We are to be a nucleus, and he has already given us a hint. So, whether the nucleus is of the size of 25,000 units or 40,000 units, it does not make that much of a difference, as it would about the quality of that nucleus. And hence I do feel strongly that if we have quality membership that is knowledgeable, membership that practices Theosophy, I think it can lead to good results.
Thank you very much. Patrizia, your turn.
Yes. Quantity will unavoidably follow quality, not the reverse.
Great. That's it?
That's it.
Okay, we come to the last one. We've made it up to number 11. And I must tell you, this is a question which I always end my mini interviews with on Theosophy Forward. And since I'm a rather old-fashioned guy, I will start with the lady. This is the question. Patrice, is there anything you would wish for the TS Adyar and the Theosophical movement?
Yes, I hope that we, the Theosophical movement, will be always able to support the work of our revered masters, opening our heart to that compassion that leads to help mankind towards liberation.
That's beautiful. Pradeep.
Well, I know that you are hurrying, and so my answer will be very short. I would wish a Happy New Year.
That's a good one. Tim. Tim.
Well, I guess I would wish that the teachings that have been given would find root in us as members, and that as fellow members we would be able to also support and nurture that growth in ways that it can become something that really has an impact in the world. Obviously, no matter how you interpret the events of the day, there is a profound need for what this theosophical teaching has to offer. The only way that will be made possible is if we actually take it seriously enough that we commit to exemplify these teachings in our own life. So that would be my wish.
Vic, you may wish upon a star.
In thinking about in thinking about the work of the Theosophical Society, I cannot help but urge ourselves to go back to the Mahatma's exhortations about what we are supposed to do. And they are very specific about certain things, not just the three objects, but something more. For example, that we should bring out to the world this knowledge that would be needed for the next step in civilization, that we should remove superstitions, that we must, that we need to give focus, for example, on the demonstration of the application of Theosophy. These are things that have been stressed by the Mahatmas, and I think we should review this, and for the 21st century, my thoughts are that we should really focus on the applied side of Theosophy. I think this is our work for this century.
Great, thank you. Then, last but not least, John, you may wish your wish.
I wish to see Theosophy become more practical, so it's something useful in everybody's lives, and it becomes of service to the world.
Beautiful words. That finishes this beautiful, I would say, wonderful discussion panel. I would like to thank Patrice. I would like to thank Pradeep, Tim, Vic, John, and thank you for your attention, and also thank you very much for keeping those weapons of mass distraction off. It really helped. Try to do it tonight as well, because at 5 o'clock there is a wonderful public lecture. Dorothy Bell from Australia will be here. Am I correct, Maria? Yes. And then what's going on tonight, Maria? We have what? Oh, the renovation update, of course, with Michiel. Right. Michiel, why don't you stand up so everybody can see you? Yes. Michiel has something very special to share with you, so please do all come. Thank you so much. We see you all later. Thank you.
But it was still great. Very well asked, very well.